Let me ask you something. Have you ever been absolutely certain about a memory only to be told it never happened? Not a little off, but never existed at all. A movie you remember watching as a child? Gone. A logo you've seen your entire life? Just wrong. A global historical event? Remembered by millions, but factually incorrect. And when you push back, when you know you're right, you're told the same thing every time. Your memory is faulty. You're wrong. The phenomenon has a name. It's called the Mandela Effect. And once you really understand it, you may never trust your own memories the same way again. The Mandela Effect is named after Nelson Mandela. For years, decades even, large numbers of people around the world remembered the same thing. Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s. Not as a rumor, not as speculation, as a fact. People didn't just vaguely believe this, they remembered details. Televised funerals, global mourning, news anchors announcing his death, teachers discussing it in classrooms. Some people even remember learning about it in school. Others remember talking about it with family, and some even remember exactly where they were when they heard the news. These weren't internet comments. These were memories formed before social media, before viral misinformation, before algorithmic reinforcement. And then one day, those memories collided with reality because Nelson Mandela didn't die in prison. He was released in 1990. He became president of South Africa and lived until 2013. That alone is strange. But what makes it disturbing isn't that people were wrong. It's that so many people were wrong in the exact same way. This wasn't one rumor, one community, or even one country. It was a shared, synchronized false memory. And that raised a terrifying question. How can millions of people remember the same thing if it never happened? Now let's talk about the example that breaks people's brains, the movie Shazaam. If you grew up in the 1990s, this probably feels real to you. A family comedy, genie, baggy clothes, goofy smile, starring comedian Sinbad, except it doesn't exist. There is no record of it, no trailer, no VHS tape, no production credits. Sinbad himself has publicly said numerous times he never made it. What does exist is Kazam, starring Shaquille O'Neal. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. People don't just vaguely recall Shazaam. They remember specific scenes, the tone of the movie, watching it on TV, renting it from video stores. Some even remember owning the tape. Entire Reddit threads exist where people swear with complete confidence that they saw this movie. So what's more likely? That millions of people independently invented the same fake movie? Or that something else is going on? Next up, the Berenstain Bears, or as many people remember it, the Bernstein Bears. For decades, children read these books. I remember my parents reading them to me when I was young. Teachers assigned them in classrooms, and almost everyone remembers the spelling ending in steen, except it never did. It has always been Bearstain. That detail matters because stain doesn't match the pronunciation most people remember. Even when shown original copies of the book, people say that's not how it used to be. This isn't nostalgia, this isn't guessing, and it's certainly followed by confusion. And this pattern keeps repeating. Now let's talk about Fruit of the Loom, specifically the cornucopia in the label. Ask people what the logo looks like, and many will tell you a pile of fruit spilling out of a woven cornucopia. Here's the problem. The cornucopia has never been part of the logo. Not once, not in any era. The company has denied it repeatedly, but people remember learning what a cornucopia was because of that logo. And that's the unsettling part. Not just remembering an image, remembering learning a word from it. How do you explain that? By now, the list starts stacking up. The Monopoly Man never had a monocle. Pikachu never had a black tip tail. Darth Vader never even said, "Luke, I am your father." Each one is small, but together they start forming a pattern. And patterns are where conspiracy theories are born. One of the most common explanations people reach for is the multiverse. The idea that reality isn't singular, not one clean, continuous timeline, but countless parallel versions of existence unfolding at the same time. In this framework, reality isn't broken, it's layered. Each version nearly identical to the next, except for the details no one thinks to question. According to this theory, major historical events remain fixed. Wars still happen, nations still rise and fall, but smaller details drift. Names, logos, quotes, cultural artifacts, things too insignificant to disrupt the larger structure, but significant enough to be remembered. In one version of reality, Nelson Mandela died in prison. In another, a children's movie called Shazaam existed. And then another, the Fruit of the Loom logo did include a cornucopia. Each timeline internally consistent, each one real to the people inside it. And under normal circumstances, these timelines never interact. They remain separate, contained, unaware of one another. But the multiverse theory suggests something else, that under certain very specific conditions, stress, probability collapse, quantum interference, these boundaries may weaken. Not enough to cause chaos, just enough to cause overlap, a blending of the edges, a memory from one version leaking into another. Not a full jump, just residue, which would explain why the memories generally feel authentic, the details are consistent, and the confidence is absolute. Because from the perspective of the person remembering, it did happen, just not here, at least not anymore. On the surface, this sounds absurd. Science fiction, internet nonsense, Reddit thread material, until people start asking a more troubling question. Not if this could happen, but when these memories began appearing at scale. Because if the Mandela effect were completely random, it would be scattered, inconsistent. But it isn't. It clusters, it concentrates, and that's when the theory stops sounding imaginative and starts sounding inconvenient. This is where people start bringing up CERN, specifically the Large Hadron Collider, the most powerful particle accelerator ever built. A machine buried deep beneath the border of Switzerland and France, designed to smash subatomic particles together at near light speed. It was first activated in 2008, and its stated purpose sounds harmless enough: to study the smallest building blocks of the universe, to understand mass, energy, time. Reality at its most fundamental level. But here's where things start to feel uncomfortable, because the Large Hadron Collider isn't just studying particles, it's probing the structure of reality itself. At the quantum level, scientists already know time doesn't behave linearly, observation changes outcomes, cause and effect can break down. In other words, reality isn't completely solid, it's probabilistic. Now, to be clear, no serious scientists claim CERN intentionally altered timelines. There's no proof that the collider caused reality shifts, timeline merges, parallel universes to overlap. But here's the issue. The Mandela Effect didn't cause the CERN theories. The timing did. After 2008, reports of Mandela Effect didn't just appear, they absolutely exploded in the zeitgeist. More examples, more people, more certainty. And once you notice that coincidence, once the idea is planted, you can't unsee it. Because now every memory discrepancy feels less like a mistake and more like residue. Like something changed and not everyone updated cleanly. Now, let's move away from physics and into something far more unsettling. What if this isn't cosmic? What if it's human? What if the Mandela Effect isn't about timelines at all, but about control? Because governments, corporations, and institutions already study mass psychology, memory reliability, group conformity, narrative shaping. This isn't conspiracy. This is documented from Cold War research to advertising psychology to even modern algorithmic influence. Human belief has always been something to manage. And memory is the foundation of belief. Think about it. If you can convince people they're wrong about something they know happened, not something abstract, not something distant, but something they personally remember, then what happens next? They don't become defiant, they become uncertain. They start questioning themselves, and once someone doubts their own memory, they become much easier to guide. The Mandela effect, viewed through this lens, stops being mysterious and starts being strategic. You don't need to censor the past, you just need to overwrite confidence. Reality doesn't collapse through force, it collapses through doubt. And the most powerful part, no one has to know it's happening. Because if memory is flawed, then every correction can be framed as help. Every disagreement becomes a false memory. And every challenge to the narrative can be dismissed with one phrase. That's not how it really happened. At that point, the Mandela effect isn't about timelines, it's about who gets to decide what's real and who doesn't. Here's what science says. Human memory is reconstructive. We don't replay memories, we rebuild them every time we recall them. Each time you remember something, the memory is slightly altered, influenced by context, rewritten without your awareness. And that means small influences matter. Similar logos, cultural overlap, repetition, group reinforcement. Once a false memory is shared, it doesn't weaken, it stabilizes, especially when other people confirm it. The brain treats agreement as evidence, a fatal human flaw. And over time, confidence replaces accuracy. This explains how false memories spread. It explains why people become certain. It explains why correction feels uncomfortable, but it doesn't fully explain why these memories, and it doesn't explain why they feel so real, why they arrive with emotion, why they carry certainty, why they resist correction. Science explains the mechanism, but it doesn't explain the experience. The Mandela effect doesn't prove alternate realities. Let's get that out of the way. It doesn't prove timeline shifts, experiments, conspiracies, but it proves something else. That memory is fragile, that certainty is dangerous, and that reality may be far less stable than we assume. Because if millions of people can remember the same thing with the same details, the same confidence, and still be wrong, then the most unsettling question isn't what else are we misremembering? It's what else has already been rewritten. And if it has, would you even know it happened? Or would it feel exactly the same way memory always does? Certain, familiar, undeniable. Thank you for watching another deep dive from around the way. Like, comment, subscribe, let us know what crazy topic you want us to cover next. Have a good one.